This is What's on Jones, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm back. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about an interesting topic. I want to talk about wrestling and charisma. You know, characters. What is it that sells wrestling? Is it the charisma or is it the wrestling? Which do you prefer? What is it that gets you, the people, the fans, to order a wrestling match? No, a wrestling show. What is it that tunes you in to wrestling? Is it the charisma? Is it the characters? Is it the wrestling? Is it the storyline? What is it? Now, for me, it has to be a little bit of a combination of both. But let me see. What is it that gets you invested in a character? You know, a certain character. What is it that got you invested in Steve Austin? Was it his charisma or was it his wrestling ability? Now, Steve Austin is known as the greatest wrestler in the business, but he is for damn sure known as one of the greatest characters ever in the business. You know, quite possibly the greatest character ever, you know, in the history of the business. Stone Cold Steve Austin. The same thing with The Rock. How did The Rock get over with the fans? Was it his wrestling ability? I don't think so. I think it was his charisma. And we all know we all love The Rock. We all miss The Rock, whether you want to call the man a sellout or not. You're ordering WrestleMania to see The Rock. Let's be honest here. And John Cena, of course. Why did John Cena get over? Was it his wrestling ability? Or was it his character? Was it his charisma? Was that it that got you invested in John Cena? I think it was more of his, you know, his charisma instead of his wrestling ability. And because, yeah, you know, John Cena is one of those people that people say that he can't wrestle. But, you know, before people said that he couldn't wrestle, before people actually noticed, you know, like how bad of a wrestler he was, or at least, no, I shouldn't say how bad of a wrestler, how not great of a wrestler he was, people were into John Cena's character. Let's be honest there. You were into John Cena's character. You take a guy like Hulk Hogan, who wasn't the best wrestler in the world, who wasn't one of the best wrestlers in the world. I wouldn't even say he was one of the best. He wasn't necessarily one of the worst, but he wasn't known to be one of the best wrestlers in the world. Hulk Hogan was known for his charisma, basically. His charisma. Roddy Piper. Both these charismatic guys, Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan, clearly not the best wrestlers in the world, especially Roddy Piper. He wasn't the best wrestler in the world. Roddy Piper would never ever be able to say that he was the best wrestler in the world. But what he had was great charisma. So, especially nowadays, you see nowadays in the WWE, you got to have that charisma. It's charisma. They want charisma, characters, with storylines backing this charisma up, of course. But they want guys with various charisma and mic skills. You got to be able to talk. You got to be able to talk. Wrestling to the WWE is second or third or fourth or fifth. That's the last thing that they really care about, to be honest. I don't think they want the match to absolutely suck or anything like that. But that's what's last on the WWE's mind, the whole wrestling part. They want guys with interesting looks, interesting characters, charisma, mic skills, guys who can go on the mic. Now, for example, Sheamus. I'm going to do a video on Sheamus later. I'm not going to say too much about Sheamus, but one of the reasons why Sheamus got over, at least with the WWE, one of the reasons why they pushed him is because Sheamus had an interesting look. I never saw anybody that white before, you know, with that pale skin. I never really saw anyone, at least in the wrestling business, of course, who had really skin like that. I really never saw that look. So he had a look that was different and interesting. And guess what? He got over, he got pushed, he got championship matches. He was in main events quick. Like, Sheamus became a main event very, very quick, regardless if you didn't agree with it or not, because I know I didn't. But I'm gonna talk about Sheamus in another video. Charisma is the key of success in the WWE. If you have charisma and mic skills, because you gotta have both. You can have charisma and mics. You can have charisma, but if you don't have mic skills, you're probably not going to get a certain push. Now, for example, John Morrison. John Morrison has charisma. There's a difference between charisma and mic skills. Some people probably think it's the same thing, but it really isn't. John Morrison has good charisma, but his mic skills weren't that good. He never really said nothing to bring you in. to keep you really listening to what he was saying on the mic, especially when he was the ECW champion. When he talked on the mic, he didn't really sound that cool. I guess I should say that's what I should come up with. That's the only thing I can think of right now. He didn't really sound that cool when he was on the mic. At least in my opinion. Let me think of someone else. Brett. Brett had mic skills to a certain extent, but his charisma was okay at best. Brett is probably one of the biggest wrestlers who got over on his wrestling ability. He had a little bit of charisma, a little bit of mic skills, but he basically got over because his wrestling ability, and he came off as a superhero. Brett had a good look. But I want to ask y'all that: what is it that sells wrestling for you? At least, what is it? Is it the charisma, or is it the wrestling? Because if you're watching WWE, they don't really too much give a damn about the wrestling. They want the charisma, they want the characters, they want the look first, and the wrestling second. That's how they are. If you're an ROH fan, that's where you're gonna get the wrestling first, basically, and then you get the characters on top of that. But that's what I want to talk about. In this video, that's all I got to say. I'm gonna make this video long. Charisma versus mic skills. Wrestling. Charisma versus wrestling, basically. That's what the topic of this video is. That's the theme of this video. What is it that sells wrestling? Is it the charisma, or is it the wrestling ability? So, this is Warzone Jones. If you haven't done so, subscribe to my channel. I am back. I had a long layoff, but I'm back. So, deuces.